So, hello everyone. In our previous lecture, we had started a topic of genetics. We had covered about several topics related with the genetics. But in this lecture, we are going to discuss about some more topics of the genetics. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so the first is Mendelian genetics. Like we know what is the genetics. Genetics basically means the study of gene. We know what is gene. Then the hereditary. We know what is hereditary, or you can say the variations. We know what is the variations, but what is the meaning of Mendelian genetics? Like it is start with a one person. It is start with a one person who had a curiosity to know about the genetics in depth. Okay, and because of him, today we are discussing this topic with various scientific explanations. Got it? So basically, the Mendelian genetics stands for George Jehan. Sorry, let me write it down again. Jehan. Jehan Mendel. Okay. So he was the person who first tried to solve the puzzle of the genetics. Okay. How does the information, or you can say genetic information, pass on to the generation, then to the generation, and then to the generation? And how does this process goes on? Okay. So he was the first person who tried to find it. Second thing, he tried to change the process and see the results. Okay, so basically, Johann Mendel, or you can say George Johann Mendel, was the first person who tried to solve the puzzle, like how these informations are carrying from one generation to the another generation, and also he will try to make some changes in this process and to notice several things. So we are going to discuss these things in detail so that we could have a command on this lecture. Okay, so let's start. So basically, the George Johann Mendel sir, or you can say that person started his experiment nearly in the year of 1822 to 1824. How older it is. Okay. So during this time, he started his experiments, which is known as monohybrid cross, thereafter dihybrid cross. So he started this experiment basically. Okay. And based on this experiments, he gave laws of genetics. Okay. Laws of genetics. And we are going to study about these laws also. Okay. But there is one question and there is one irony in this. Like George Johann Mendel, who was the person who started the study of the genetics on full-fledged on the scientific basis, but he was not the person who coined the term genetics. Okay. He was not that one. The genetics word was basically came into existence in the year of 1905. Okay, after many years of George Johann Mendel's experiment, and this word was basically given by W. Dot Watson. Okay, W. Dot Watson, basically the first person, basically the first person who coined the term genetics. So this was the irony basically. The person who discovered it didn't give the name, but the person who was studying the things, he gave the name genetics. So remember one thing, the father of genetics is known as the George Johann Mendel, but the genetics term was not coined by him. It was coined by W. Watson in the year of 1905. Got it? Now come to the point again. So it was a year of 1822, 1824. Total 2 years he spent and on experiment, basically known as the study of inheritance patterns in pea plants. Okay, which gives Mendel's law, which is also known as law of genetics. Okay, so basically, why he was doing it? What was the motive? Okay, so if we want to study it, then there is one thing. Basically, he was trying to find out how that person and that person, whether they are the male or female, but they both should be of opposite genders. When they are coming together, they are producing the new one, which is similar to one of the parents physically. Okay, how? Because the child could be male and female only. Okay, so how does it possible? So it is possible because of the genetics, and the genetics is not discovered during the time of 1822 to 1824, because Mendel was trying to find out the genetics on that time. Got it? So basically, he tried his experiment on the pea plants. First, he did monohybrid cross. Second, he did dihybrid cross. So let's discuss these cross one by one. Okay. So our first one is monohybrid cross. Monohybrid cross. What do you mean by hybrid? Before we start about the monohybrid and the dihybrid cross. Okay. So basically, you can say hybrid is a newborn of two different breeds. Okay, so hybrids basically are newborn of two different breeds. Okay, and how we can say that two different breeds, what does it mean? So let's take an example. Most of you must know the name of vampire. Vampire. Okay, or you can say the werewolf. Okay, so you have heard about them. What they are, what they are exactly? Basically, they are, for a vampire, they are half human and half bats. Similarly, for werewolf, they are half human and half wolf. Okay, so basically you can say they are the hybrids because they having characteristics of two different breeds. One is human class, second one is vampire class, or sorry, second one is bat class, or you can say the wolf class. Okay, so these peoples are the hybrid. So basically, hybrid is a newborn which comprise two different breeds. Okay, so basically, Mandel start hybriding these things, okay, so that he could understand how the information is passing from one generation to another. Okay, like just take an example. If this is a human, how did he made cross with a vampire, sorry, with a bat, give rise to the vampire, and when this vampire give birth to the new one, then that one is also vampire. So only during the first generation the information get exchanged, then this information will be continued to pass on from generation to generation. Okay, so that was the main task, to understand how does it possible, how it is going on. Okay, so for this he started experiments. Now I hope you have got a clear picture of the hybrid. Now let's take an example of mono hybrid. Mono hybrid. Okay. So basically, in mono hybrid, he took pea plant, plant number one, or basically A, then plant B. But these plants were not similar because one of them is tall and one of them is dwarf. Okay. So these plants are not same in the physical features. Got it? So he bring two plants A and B and then he made cross between them. Okay. He made cross between them and then he obtained the new one which is AB was showing the characteristics from A and B. But he noticed one thing here, that the A and B which having two different characteristics, it having the characteristics of A then B, but it will showing the characteristics of only one. So you can say either the new plant will be tall or dark. Got it? So basically, he observed that the plants, which one? Tall and dwarf. They both come together and produce a new plant. But in spite of having two different characteristics, the new plant will only show the characteristics of one parent. Okay? Either the plant will be small or dwarf, or either the plant will be tall one. Got it? So it was the monohybrid cross. Okay. Now, then he got some idea about it, but he wanted to make himself more sure. Okay, before making any conclusion. So this time he enhanced the limit of his experiment. Okay, and now he did dihybrid cross. Dihybrid cross. In dihybrid cross, he picked two plants A and B, but this time there is one difference between them. And what was? They were different in colors and shape of seeds. But in the monohybrid cross, in the monohybrid cross, both the plants, whether it's A and whether it's B, they both were only different in one characteristics, which is height. One may be tall. Here I'm just taking example of A. Okay. Second one is B, which is dark. Okay. So basically, in monohybrid cross, there is only one dissimilarity between two plants. But when he was doing the experiment with dihybrid cross, there are two different characteristics between them. Their color and their shape of seeds were different. Got it? So basically, he took the plants, and these plants were also the P plant. Just remember the thing. Okay? So first plant was that one plant was round seed and of yellow color, whereas second plant was wrinkled seed and of green color. Okay, so now you can see that the seed of A is round, whereas seed of B is wrinkled. Same as for the color of A is yellow, whereas the color of B is green. So this time he took plants with two different characteristics and made them to change their characteristics. Now guess the outcome. Guess the outcome. What was the outcome? So many of you say, sir, the outcome would be the same, like A or B get into the intercourse, and then the new one will be AB. Okay, but again, the result was very much similar to the previous result. In monohybrid cross, he noticed that the characteristics of two different plants are getting together, like A and B. They both are different in the characteristics, but AB is showing only the characteristics of one. So whether AB will be tall or will be dwarf. But in dihybrid cross, the same thing was happening. This time, he chose a dihybrid cross, means the plants were different in two characteristics, but the new plant, which is AB, only show round shape and yellow color. So you can say the A part is representing in the new one. Okay. So this is the special condition for Manleaf. Like he was in thought that I am trying to get a characteristics from two different plants, like plant A and plant B. But what is happening actually? Okay, only one plant is showing the characteristics. So it means there is a concept of power. Okay, like the two different people are trying for the same thing, but only one is getting to the point. So it means that somewhere this is a struggle for the power, which is more precisely the dominance. The dominance. Okay, so based on this understanding, he formulated Mendele's law of genetics. Got it? So let's start the discussion over them. So the first law is law of segregation. Law of segregation. But before understand it, you must understand the LS. Basically, the LS are gene variants. Gene variants. Got it? So basically, these gene variations are the character, whether the tall or the dark, for understanding A and B. So the A genes were the genes for the tall, okay, but for B, the genes were the dark, okay. So these genes are basically known as the Alice, okay. So basically, Mendel gave his first law, which is known as a law of segregation. Segregation. He said if two different characteristics came together, like A and B, which are different, came together, then the AB will show the characteristics of only one, whether of A, whether of B. In the F1 generation, in the F1 generation, now it is not the F1 racing, okay, it is a F1 generation, which stands for the first generation, okay. But in the second generation, both the characteristics will be display differently, okay, will be display differently into F2 generation, okay, because the alleles were showing themselves segregately or separately, okay. So you can say in the first generation, when the tall or dwarf plants are coming together, then the new one will be tall or dwarf, any of them, okay. But in the second generation, when the A or B will come together, then the new ones will show themselves separately, okay. So this is the first law, which is known as the law of segregation. Got it? Move forward. Second law is law of independent assortment, okay. Then in this law, he said, Mendel's second law, law of assortment, states that in the F2 generation, in the F2 generation, okay, the alleles were independent of their parents. Okay, so basically you can say, like the previous law, in previous law, when A or B are matching together, then the F1 generation will be showing either A's characteristics or B's characteristics. Similarly, in F2 generation, they will showing themselves separately. Then similarly, in the second law, law of independent assortment says that in the F2 generation, F3 generation and upcoming generations, there is independency, there is independency of characters of LS in comparison of their parents. Okay, whatever their parents characters, whatever their parents change, this law of independent assortment said during the F2 generation and upcoming generation there will be a independency of Alice. So you can just write down this statement so that it will help you in the exam. Got it? So here we have finished two main laws of the Mendel's genetics. Okay, now let's move forward. Thereafter, we have the genotype and the phenotype. What do you mean by this genotype and phenotype? Basically, genotype refers to the genetic makeup of an organism, like the organism, this one. Okay, this one. All right. Now, whatever the genetic coding this organism having, okay, whatever the genetic coding, and this is the DNA basically. Okay, as we know that DNA is the main base for the genetic information. Okay, so whatever the genetic coding this organism is having, it is known as the genotype. Okay, it known as a genotype. Got it? Second one is a phenotype. Because of this genetic information, how will be the physical appearance of that organism is known as the phenotype. Okay, like just take an example, A plus B. Okay, it is taller, it is dark. So this is a genetic coding. Okay, it is the genetic coding or the genotype, but it is only showing one characteristics which is taller. Okay, or you can say one characteristics which is dwarf. Okay, then due to the LA which is shared in this scenario, the LA of dwarf shared in this scenario, the LA of taller share. Okay, because of this share of LA or because of the genetic makeup of the new one, how will it appear? So in this condition, the genetic makeup of a new one is taller, so the physical or you can say the phenotype of the new one will be taller. Got it? In this condition, the genotype of new one is dark, so the phenotype or the physical appearance of the new one will be dark. Got it? So it is about the genotype and the phenotype. Now let's move forward. Then the dominance and the recessiveness. Okay, now how you can understand it? Remember, suppose just take an example, there are two persons, this one and this one. Okay, and there is only one table with chair. Okay, there is only one table with chair. Okay, now there are two people, they both want to sit on this chair and using that table. Okay, but there is only one. So what they should do, either they should talk or they should fight. But most of the case, as we know, as usual, there is a case of fight. Okay, I'm not saying that you should fight in a physical manner, but in this scenario what will happen, whomsoever is powerful, whomsoever is powerful in a real scenario will occupy this chair, and whomsoever is weak will avoid sitting. Okay, so you can say whomsoever is powerful will have a dominance on that chair, and whomsoever which is weak will have a recessiveness on this chair. Okay, so just suppose that fellow is powerful, so he will come and sit on the chair. That fellow is weak person, so he will avoid to sitting on the chair. Got it? Similar things happen in the genetics for A, for B. In that case, A, which is taller, in that case, B, which is dwarf. Now, they both are coming together, and this is a chair in that case, which is the new one. Okay, so just take an example. The taller one, A, is dominant, is powerful. Then he will ensure that 8 characteristics will be shown into AB. So you can say AB will be taller. Got it? Now, in the reverse case, like A plus B, in that case, just take an example. If A, which is taller, okay, D, which is dark, okay, in this scenario, if B is strong, A is weak, then B will ensure to sit on the chair, or you can say to show its characteristic into the new one. So there is a case of taller, there is a case of dwarf. Okay, so it is basically the dominance and the recessiveness. So basically you can say when the Mendeleeves were doing his experiment, then he noticed one thing, that only characteristics of dominant figure is shown. Okay, whomsoever having a power will show his dominance into the new one. Okay, so it is about the dominance and the recessiveness. Got it? So students, basically in this lecture we had covered about some important laws of the genetics. Okay, in our next lecture we will have a discussion over some interesting facts related with the genetics and whatsoever could be covered and could be related with the genetics. And now I will try to connect it with some new concepts which are surrounded us in the today's scenario, so that you will have a clear cut information about the genetics and how the genetics are important and why they are viable to study. Got it? Till then, I want you all to study about the facts which I have told you, to revise all of them, so that when we will learn about the new chapters and the new lectures, then, so students, today we have discussed about the important laws of the genetics. Okay, I hope that you were able to understand this, and these concepts are very interesting. Got it? In our next lecture, we will have a discussion over genetics and some other important facts about genetics. And also, I will try to connect genetics with the ongoing today's scenarios. Okay, so that you will have a clear cut knowledge of the genetics. Till then, I want you all to revise the concept which I have told you. Okay, so that you will find yourself able to understand all the things which we will covering in our upcoming lectures. Till then, thank you all.